Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. We are going to be talking in this webinar about protecting revenue by protecting relationships. We want to explore the vital connection between nurturing buyer relationships and securing revenue. So during this webinar, I hope you'll be able to gain some actionable insights on building trust, enhancing communication, and fostering long-term partnerships for consistent revenue and sustainable growth. Our speaker is Ed Wallace, Managing Director at Achieve Next. Now, Ed has got a phenomenal background and some really interesting things that he has achieved in his career and in his life, including, and Ed, you are going to have to tell us about this. You did an opening number for the Rolling Stones, right? So I'm going to query you on that in a little bit.
Oh, good.
But
save that, because
yes, we'll
that's a
save
long
that.
story, Catherine.
Well,
It's
we
a
are going
great
to save
story.
that definitely for the end, but you have to give us a little bit of insight into that. Anyway, so Ed, as I've said, is Managing Director of Human Capital at Achieve Next, and he is a globally recognized expert in business relationships. In fact, he even has a book that he has written. So if you are interested, I do recommend this book, The Relationship Engine, written by our speaker today, Ed. And Ed is a recognized expert in business relationships. He's delivered lots and lots of keynotes and does specialized training to enhance success for individuals and enterprises. He is a #1 best-selling author and acclaimed speaker. And he has been featured in leading publications, including Harvard Business Review, and contributes to prestigious educational programs at various universities, such as Drexel University and Villanova University. So with that, I'm going to stop speaking and I'm going to now hand over to Ed. Ed, over to you. Okay.
There we go. Just on the bottom of my bio on the next page, everybody link in with me, Ed Wallace 007. I hope you appreciate that. Catherine does from where she lives. And if you go to the next one, please. So what do we do now, right? What do we do? Everybody's got different opinions. I was talking with a manufacturer yesterday, and they're booming. I was talking with another one in a different industry, and they're cutting back already. So everybody is in different places, and the one who's cutting back was printing money a year and a half ago, adding capacity. So what do we do now? Now, outside of the pandemic, because I don't know what we call that, but the last recession, this is some data from that recession, and that was 2008. And a lot of Gen Zs for sure, and a lot of millennials have not experienced a recession before. But some bad stuff happened. But how about that? 14% of companies actually grew, and of those 14%, they averaged 9% growth. So how do we become a 14%er? That's what we're talking about today. How do you become a 14%er? How do you grow in uncertain times? They had a plan. And I was in a keynote. Sometimes I watch keynote speakers, and I was co-keynoting on a different platform with this fellow from Canada. Had a great line. It was, you can hit snooze, or you can get up in the morning, put your feet in the ground, and don't hit snooze. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's not worry about hitting the snooze button. Let's be proactive. Let's have a plan. And we believe there's 4 parts to any plan at any time, but we kind of focus today on an uncertain economy. And it has to do with relationships, which is, of course, where I tend to dominate the conversation, where you get customer insights, whether you should upskill or restructure your teams, and how do we align sales and finance? That's an interesting one because there's always a lot of friction there. So we're going to talk about those 4 ideas as part of our plan. So there are multiple ways to grow. Let's click through these slowly, if you don't mind, Catherine. We can grow new stuff. We can just sell new stuff to current people. Keep rolling. Sell new stuff to new people. We can merge and acquire, or we can just grow our current accounts. How do we grow? And we're going to focus on how do we grow our current accounts, because they already have relationships with us. And those current accounts could be ones that are not growing right now, or they're cutting back. They could also be ones that are our top accounts. And so the first part of our puzzle is strategic relationship development. some research was done by a market research firm, and they came back with, we're not even getting 50% of the potential from these existing customers of ours. Why do you think that is? If you can not worry about the methodology and all the things that go with surveys, just for fun, accept the data, why are we not getting the most out of these people we already know, these companies we already know, these clients we already know? Why? What's getting in the way? We're not proactive, right? That's what we're trying to talk about today, Catherine. What else is about these existing relationships? We're not asking for the right connections. We're going to talk about how to make additional connections today. Good job, Dominic. It's a silo organization. The customer will have a complex to navigate, and that's another point we're going to make, and how to navigate that. And Pat says sales team's too busy, and Pat's on the finance side, by the way. We don't have enough time. I hear that a lot as well. We just don't have enough time for these important customers of ours because we're out chasing new ones. So one of the things that we like you to think about is, do I really know the relational GPS of all these important people? And if you could, we'll talk about what relational GPS is. We call it a universal framework for all business relationships, and it gets down to the human one-to-one level, not your company to that account, but your account manager, your VP of sales. We do get complacent about relationships, Ed. Good job. When we don't understand the business and personal goals, the things that person cares deeply about, we call those passions. It could be business or personal, and or struggles. And every human being has those. If we can locate a business and personal goal, a business and personal passion, a business and personal struggle, we build what we call relational or relationship capital. And the more relationship capital we build, we know the relationships 90% of the time carry the day, according to research. The relationship wins 90% of the time. We call locating GPS universal, and I know John Tierney knows all about relational GPS, because whatever generation you are, you've got GPS. We got 4 generations in the workplace right now. Whatever country you're in general, you've got relational GPS. We're training in Ireland next month. We just finished a program in the Middle East. And relational GPS is a concept that everyone, in 18 years, 29,000 people have seen this concept. Almost everyone seems to get. Are you asking your sales team to do this exercise when they say they're stuck? Or if you're in charge of sales for your business, or if you're a one-person operation, you're a one-person business, can you actually locate these 3 elements? And maybe you know their goals, but if they haven't shared struggles with you, they may not feel you can help them. We always find that if a prospect, a customer shares struggles with us, that's a great sign. And that shows they believe in us, that we might be able to help them. It's all about asking the right questions. Are we distinguishing ourselves through the right discovery questions? My 2 favorite discovery questions. The first one is, how's this current business environment impacting your plans? How's this current business environment impacting your plans? It's a go-to. You can ask it anytime in a down economy, in a strong economy, an inflationary economy, in a neutral economy, because it's a business environment. It's impacting plans. There's a very good chance you're going to get a business response, and establishing yourself at a business level is important. A new one that we've come up with that I think you'll also like as a way to learn GPS is, tell me something your competition does that you'd like to be able to do. That gets a CEO thinking. That gets a buyer thinking. That gets an R&D person thinking. That gets whatever department you're working with thinking. Tell me what your competition does that you'd like to be able to do. And those are great questions to ask around GPS. Actually, we go through a process to build relationships. And again, the first puzzle piece is relationships. Are we doubling down on the people we already know? Where are we in that ladder? Are we an acquaintance? If you could advance 2 more times, Catherine. Are we a peer with that person? Or are we an advisor with that person? So I'd like you to take this one more time, please. I'd like you to, actually one more, sorry. I'd like you to take this back to your sales team, or again, yourself, and say, okay, account by account, put the account name in, put the person's name in. Where am I on this ladder? Nice, another little continuation of this exercise. Rate your relationship on the ladder, circle where you are today, and what are you going to do about it? So again, this is not difficult. This is a Friday afternoon when you're sitting around looking at your customers, your prospects. Where am I on this ladder? What do I need to do to advance? Do I need to locate GPS? Do I need to follow up sooner? Have I lost track of them? Whatever that is, like I said, let's put our feet on the ground and let's not hit snooze. So that's relationships. I hope we put a couple of tools in there for you. Customer insights. It's in here. How many people are involved in a business to business decision today? Chat in what you think the answer is. Got 6 to 7. John says 6 to 7. Everybody's saying 6 to 7, right? You're going for the high extreme because why not?
I was doing one of these webinars with somebody from Bain a few weeks ago, and according to the Bain studies, the latest hot off the press survey or results on this question is there are now as many as 18 or 19 people in a buying committee.
Mm-hmm. It depends on the size, and my data is a little less current, but
no, but I think 6 to 7 is still probably your typical buying decision.
Yep, and it used to be 1. So the average deal today is 6 to 7 decision makers and influencers, and I don't know if anyone has ever heard of a seagull. Has anyone heard of the seagull in the decision-making process? Anyone ever heard about the seagull?
Are you referring to the bird, Ed?
The bird, the seagull, yes. Has anyone heard which, let's say it's a buying committee of 6 to 7 or 18, and there's always a seagull. And the seagull is the person who never gets on the Zooms, who they're involved, but they don't give you any of their time. And then when it comes time for a decision, what does a seagull do to you when you're on a beach? Right?
On your head.
Every once in a while, it does that to you, right? Yeah. Well, that's what the seagull does in the decision-making process to your proposal. So we have a simple tool on the next page. Your important business relationship is that diagonal line. And let's say that's John Tierney. But John's got a C-level executive above him, and he's got some other VPs that are the side of him, and he's got a successor or a key influencer. Where are we relationally with those other 4 people on the compass? Have we even met with them? And if you have a great relationship with John, asking him to introduce you, or he'll proactively say, "Look, we got some other people here you got to work with." So again, this doesn't cover 6 to 7; it covers 5. But it's a simple idea that you can take from this webinar and start using right off the bat. It's not complicated. And I think on the next page, I gave everybody a grid that you can actually use to fill in. And again, you can substitute the names across the top. These are those other 4 points. Who are they? What are their KPIs? What's important to them? And what's the language of that purchasing manager versus that manufacturing R&D person or the engineer or the C-suite person? So again,
and by language, you mean the terms they use, or what? Is that what you mean?
Exactly, Catherine. Are we speaking the language of that? So in other words, if I'm talking to a C-level person, they don't really care about cost per unit. They want to know how it's going to impact getting to market sooner. How it's, they're going to want to know how it's going to impact the strategy they put in place. Whereas if I'm talking to the purchasing person, they're going to talk about cost per unit or run rate or downtime. My favorite example of this is, I'm Eddie, the sales rep, and I'm selling parts to a manufacturer. And this is not this is not the 6 to 7 decision makers. I'm just working with one decision maker right now, but I get to your question. And I used the SAMA tool here because I wanted to give them an accreditation. We used this at the SAMA, the Strategic Account Management Association conference this year. Anyway, Eddie, the sales rep, walks into Charlie, the manufacturing. He's the purchasing manager. And Charlie's got some U.S. flags behind him and some medals. And Eddie, the sales rep, typically would say, hey, all of our stuff, Charlie, is made in the USA. And, that's not really a good idea because Charlie likes German engineering. He says, hey, Eddie, guess what? I'm so glad you make stuff in your own country here, but I prefer in our country, but I prefer German stuff. It's more precise. Why didn't Eddie just go in there and say, hey, I see you got plants all over the country. Where are you getting your parts from? Oh, Germany. Oh, offshore. Well, where? Germany. How's that going for you? Not really well. Well, how come, Charlie? Well, it used to take 3 to 4 weeks. Now it's taking 8 to 10. Sometimes stuff gets stuck in the ports or there's not enough truckers. It's really interesting, Charlie. I was looking at your plants on your website. We have distribution facilities within 50 miles of each one. We get your parts the next day. That's the language of Charlie, not made in the USA.
Yeah.
Can your teams do that? Or your team's just working with the purchasing person or the manufacturer? Can they speak the language around the axis of influence that they need to work with? And I'm asking that, of course, rhetorically. If you can go back one page, I just want to make one more point. Our largest customer in our business here, and we've been, like I said, around 18 years now. We train almost 30,000 people. Our largest customer, the main decision maker, is at the bottom of this axis. And her name is Margot. And Margot is an administrative person at a very large chemical company. I never speak with a C-level person there. I never speak with a VP level person at this company. Yet every year, Margot sends me that PO, and every year she increases it without me asking. We've got to be very careful who's on this axis and the level of influence they have. Margot actually is in the IVR diagonal there, but she started off as the influential person. So I don't know if anybody has any comments, another quick story about something like that. I just wanted to, and then we'll wrap up relationships. I get through the other two puzzle pieces fairly quickly. In perpetuity, we're working with an office professional for one of our largest accounts. And we get to shake hands with C-level people and they say, hey, I heard you're doing a great job. And that's it. Okay. And I know we've got some sales leaders on here. What do I do? Is it easier to upskill or restructure? My friend Roy is on here. Roy runs our hospitality practice. We are now moving into the hotel and the hospitality industry. And Roy, can you quickly come on and tell that story about the $10,000 mistake? Can you tell that story in like a minute?
In short order, there was a new hire that was very proactive and wanted to get things done and wanted to sort of prove that he had the wherewithal to make decisions and carry on with stuff. And there was one circumstance he came to where there was had to do with a wedding, and something happened, and the client wanted a $10,000 credit or something like that. And basically, looking at all the information, relying on his expertise and his history and all this, all he knew, he said, "Look, we'll issue the credit." But when that got up to the big boss, he was furious because the guy had missed a component of the history in that relationship. So I called the guy up, and the guy goes, "I'm sure I'm fired, right?" And the boss said, "Why would I fire you? I just invested $10,000 in you."
And as sales
that's
leaders,
the point. They learn from their mistakes. Yeah.
That's the point. That's an upskill opportunity, right, Roy? Right.
Yep.
He could have restructured, but he invested so much, and then incremental 10,000. So as sales leaders or managers, as you're looking at your teams, what is the cost of upskilling that person or those persons versus restructuring and changing things around? There's no easy answer, but it's hard to develop fluency, and it's hard to find strong sales professionals today. So is it better to invest in the journey people? I used to say journeymen, but now I'm appropriately correct, journey people. Or is it better to restructure those roles? I have a couple of quick points on this, and then we'll move to the CFO point. So, how many minutes in a typical 1 hour sales meeting are valuable to the buyer? Chat in a number from 0 to 60. How many minutes in a typical 1 hour sales meeting are valuable to the buyer? There's
Yeah.
6 minutes. There's 6 minutes of
Yeah.
value. Florida State did a study. Right. Go ahead, Catherine.
Did you say Florida State did the study?
I believe so. That's where I believe this came from. Or HubSpot, one of those
Interesting.
two. Yep. One of
Oh,
those
wow.
two.
Okay. Next
Yep.
slide.
If you can just hang on this for a moment.
Yep.
So think about when you're releasing your team into the world in an uncertain economy, when a buyer or decision maker's perception is, gee, I don't get a lot of value out of this hour. First of all, maybe schedule half an hour. You can double it. But again, I think it gets down to a lot of things we're talking about. Are we prepared? Are we asking great questions? Are we behaving as a business person? Are we focusing on the relationship? By the way, that 6 minutes goes up if it's with an existing relationship, right? And again, just for fun, and we won't tell anybody, chat in what you think. There's no response on this one from me. What do you think about your teams? And if any of your teams are on here, then don't do it. But you're all kind of by yourself, I would think. What percentage of your sales team has these skills? You know, you can always get better relationships. You can always get better at sales skills. And here's one of my favorite lines, because we've had good times here for a little while. Even coming out of the pandemic, a lot of things happened in sales where people were just writing orders. And one of my friends said, "Hey, there's nothing like good times to make bad salespeople." How do you like that one? There's nothing like good times to make bad salespeople. And I'm finding right now that the companies that are really planning are investing in upskilling. And that's not self-serving, because that's what we do. There's thousands of companies out there that we don't work with. They're investing in upskilling. Something to think about going into your kickoffs next year. Last piece I think is coming up here, Catherine. This is one where, and I know Pat's a CFO. I don't know if we have any other CFOs on here, but there's always this friction. Why do we have to have friction? And here's some of the reasons. As a sales leader, you're not really good. Your track record has to get discounted your forecast gets discounted every month. CRM's not giving you good data. Pandemics change buying patterns. You CFOs focused on cost, and you're focused on growth. We're different people. CFOs are kind of looking at things skeptically. I think Pat's more of a growth mindset guy, whereas sales leaders say, "Hey, we're going to do a big deal next week. Hey, what do you see what's going to happen on Wednesday?" So how do we cut through all this? Real easy for you as a sales leader. But if you can't have your team look at everything in their forecast that answer these 4 questions, and if they don't have the 4 answered, it should not be forecasted in general. This will help your CFO gain confidence and advance your relationship with them. And we have a part of our practice here, my friend Mark Roberts does pipeline audits. It's shocking to see the millions of dollars that comes out of a forecast when we ask a customer to go through this exercise. If you're a solopreneur on here, or you run a small firm of some kind, it's easy to answer these 4 questions. It's hard sometimes because, like, I want them to close this month. So what do? Again, I know we have more than just sales leaders on here, but in one way, shape, or form, if you're responsible for business development, what do we do with finance to focus on key strategic relationships, taking us all the way back to the beginning? Are we really looking at our top performing accounts, and how are we expanding that footprint? Do we have a strategy for each of those? Have we done the lateral and vertical strategy? That alone helps us expand at least our influence in that account. Have the buyers changed? Have the decision makers changed? What are the trends over the last 6 months? Your CFO has that data. What's growing faster? We're seeing, of course, manufacturing, distribution, sweet spot for us. We're seeing corrugated manufacturing and, those packaging going slower. We're seeing equipment booming, construction booming still. So where are we going to go? Guess what? We're going to the associations and we're going to the customers of ours who are in that industry. And then bring the CFO. You would be surprised at how many times I'll ask the CFO, I'll be with the CFO group, and I'll say, does your VP of sales ever introduce you to their CFO? And I get like a blank stare, like that should be part of our process. When the CFOs know each other, the negotiation generally might be a little easier versus, well, I'm going to connect with our CFO because we're about to close the deal now. So bring the CFOs in sooner on your strategy and relationally. Talk to your Eagle salespeople. What are they seeing? What are they projecting? They're walking around thinking about selling every minute of the day. And they don't write it down most of the time, but they've got something in their brains that we might be able to pull from that. And how about introducing your CFO to some key customers that they haven't met? So just some simple ideas to, improve your relationship with your CFO, reduce that friction. And I have an article I wrote that's going to be offered at the end here. You might want to look at that article. This stuff is all formed. The whole article is about the fourth puzzle piece. So here's your 4 strategies. Think about upskilling versus restructuring. Work with your CFO, improving your forecast accuracy, transparency. And that actually translates to the 4th point on there. It closes the gap between finance and sales. And let's start with our key relationships. And the ones I like to start with in the 3rd point here are the ones that are declining. We can learn a lot as to why their spend is declining with us versus the ones that are improving. And one idea on the cultural gap issue is, instead of you as the sales leader and the CFO, handling all the issues, create a committee, a cross-functional committee between finance and sales, and get maybe one of your sales ops people or one of your top salespeople on that committee with a key person on the finance side. Let them process the commission issues that should have been cleared up when the plans were put out at the beginning of the year. Let them process that. They're closer to the action. If they can't resolve it, let them come up to you at the C level to resolve things. But let the people closer to the action try to make some decisions. It'll make your life a lot easier. So those are our 4 strategies. So what's your plan to become a 14%? How are you going to stand out? One thing you might start doing, stop doing, or continue doing from this incredible wisdom that I've shared with you today, all kidding aside, all I took is things you already knew and organized it for you. But pick one and chat in what you might start doing, stop doing, or continue to do.
Just coming back to the question of restructure versus upskill, based on your experience, your research, and everything you've said today, is the conclusion upskilling is the better way to go? Or does it vary?
I would default to upskilling as my first avenue of investigation.
Okay.
Rather than we're top heavy in sales, the numbers can't support it. All the financial analysis coming. I would first look at, okay, but we've got a lot of experience. There's relationships. They're going to walk away when these people walk away, because even your most marginal journey person, sales rep, knows some people and has some fluency. You're going to have to ramp up. So I would do an analysis on upskilling first, and then go to restructure. I didn't cop out there on you. I just think that would be what we recommend.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I assumed that was what you were going to say. I just wanted to double check. And we have one response in the chat, Ed.
Yes, and upskilling doesn't have to be bringing an outside firm to train. Upskilling could simply be, doing more one-on-one time with that sales professional. It may have nothing to do with an outside vendor or anything like that. Another simple idea on the upskill is to do a quick assessment of their skills. There's a great tool. It's called Zero Risk. And it's like $50 to get the assessment done. So Zero Risk, they're out of Texas. Look into Zero Risk, and you can get, if you have a 10-person sales team, you get it assessed for $500. And the data you get back, and now you know where that person's gaps are and how you can upskill them. So I failed to mention, we use the Zero Risk assessment all the time in our practice. There's a ton of other ones out there. You may already have some. But you want to assess before you decide about upskilling. I forgot to mention that, Catherine. Let me see what Roy said here. Ask more questions, discover more about customer organization, find ways to broaden my footprint and awareness of what we're doing. Right. Learn about their company. They like to talk about their company. Lou Jaconis says, build a strong sales and vendor strategy for each target account. Exactly. It's an account by account, human by human within the account basis. Once you're pretty far up in that relational ladder, seek other opportunities. You have the right to inquire and get introductions. Hopefully they're introducing you. If you want to get on a call with Catherine and me to talk about the stuff we talked about today, these calls, sometimes an idea is sparked. Sometimes you might want to work with us self-servingly. Sometimes we might refer you to someone.
Amazing. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. I'm looking. We have 2 more comments. It looks like, we got Roy, we got Angela from California. Spend time to understand customer pain points. Right. That's GPS, Angela. We're out of time, but I'm staying on if anybody wants to talk or chat. Catherine,
we can keep the line
for
open.
A few more minutes.
Yeah, well, we can stay open. I do have a question for you, Ed. If any others have got questions, please do pop them in the chat. You know that the 6-minute thing that you mentioned earlier, like that's not new, right? This has been going on for many, many decades, where we have this challenge of really getting sellers to have those conversations so there is value for the buyers. This has been going on for decades. Why is this still happening? We have so many books and courses and materials and training and vendors and this and that and gurus. What do you think is the reason why we still have sellers struggling or organizations struggling with this? I'm just curious if you had a thought.
I think most companies train their sales teams on their solutions, and they spend less time on sincere inquiry about the customer's business. So I think what happens is we go in and we start talking about how we solve all these problems, and we presume we understand the customer's business. So they're going, okay, another feature function dump on me, another benefit dump on me, and is in language I don't understand. So I think that's part of it. And I think, and I hate to blame marketing, but marketing causes some of that. Marketing does not necessarily arm salespeople with the right language. They arm them with what I call our own corporate language, our own corp speak.
Corporate jargon.
They don't necessarily arm them with the language of the customer. Their value statements are all about their company and not the benefit to that customer. So I'm not picking on any marketing folks on here. It's just, you ask the question and that's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand why businesses, organizations have not done better job at encouraging, challenging, developing reps to do less of the product, feature, function focused dialogue and more of the business value. It's a transformation that we've been working on for how many years, Ed? Have you been doing this? A lot of years.
I've been in sales for 40 years, and I really started getting good at it about 15 years ago. So I wasted 25.
I see Lou's got a comment for us.
Yes.
It says that most sales are pushing their solution where they meet the needs of the buyer or not. Yeah, and it's just, look, this has been going on for decades, and for some reason it's still going on. I don't understand.
So to Lou's point, Catherine, you ask a good question to a customer, you hear something you like, and you go right to what Lou's saying. I've got 3 questions you can ask that make it easier. Once they respond, say why, or how come that's happening. They're going to talk some more, then say, can you tell me more? And then ask, is there anything else? And you can actively listen very simply by asking 3 more questions, even though you think you've got a solution for them. And then you build more value, and you're not spewing solutions like Lou's talking about here.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. We do an objection handling training, and we call it the power of three. When you get an objection, ask a minimum of 3 questions before you even think about responding. Even if it's an objection you've heard 100 times and you have standard sort of, response language that you would throw out, always ask the questions and then listen to the answers, right? You want to listen to the answers.
I love ask and answers.
Yes. Ask and answer.
I love the way you say it, Catherine.
Right. It comes down to something that we talk about in networking, Ed. How many times do we walk past a colleague in the office and you say, "Hey, how are you?" And we don't stop to listen to the answer. We just that's what we do in our lives, whether it's our businesses or in our lives. We don't stop to listen to the answers.
I get accused of that at home all the time, Catherine. And I'm teaching this stuff. So.
In line with that and everything you've said, I think it's easier for sellers to talk about themselves, their products, their company, their brand, than it is to take the time to research the customers and really find out about their business. It's easier to do that. It's old habits, and maybe some complacency. I'm not sure. It's probably a combination of all of these things. And then you've got the end of quarter pressure, right, Ed? You got to get the deal in no matter what, and we cut the prices. We just, I love salespeople, and they have a hard job. They really have a tough job, and sales leaders too. Think about forecasting. You're asked to predict the future and commit to it. That's actually kind of crazy if you think about it.
We've got Teresa with a question. I want to comment on Ed Ruggles' point. Can you just go back to the previous page, because that's kind of got the previous one. Yeah, that if you can leave that one up there so they know how to get to us. Teresa, what do you have for us, Teresa?
You have a hand up.
Hi, Ed. Hi, Catherine. I found this very interesting. I'm a lead account manager at Phoenix Meccano in Maryland. We're a manufacturing company. And, we struggled through COVID like everyone else. Then we had a cyber attack a year later. Took us about all of 2022 to rebuild our systems. And we're at a point right now that we're 3/4 of the way through 2023, and we need to get our account managers back on track. Unfortunately, we don't have a very reliable CRM system currently, so that leaves us with doing a lot of things manually. But I'm definitely going to reach out to Grant, see if we can talk a little bit more. Maybe we need to do some training with the account managers just to, their experience, most of them have been with the company for a long time, just to get them engaged again, getting back to basics on what we need to do to try and build relationships with some of our key accounts, especially. We have a different group of sales engineers who focus on new business. So the account managers are more working with existing customers.
Trying to expand that footprint, Teresa, right? And short of anything, again, I should never offer a solution when I just talked about asking questions. So what I would suggest as a solution is go back and ask some questions, right? Like, just ask some questions to maybe the top performer as to why somebody is having success there. It's probably you. What exactly is working right now? We don't have a good CRM. So in the interim, before we talk, I would just try to figure out, okay, incrementally, why is this person doing well and these aren't, or these 2 or 3 people are? What segments are they targeting? All that kind of stuff. To Catherine's point, we were not born going into the world of sales, yet there's $4 billion a year spent on sales training, and that's good for us. And it's a true profession. And
it is.
It really is. And Catherine, in your business alone, what you've created for sales professionals, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go right ahead.
No, you didn't interrupt me. I was just agreeing with you on that. No, carry on.
There are resources out there, and even within your own companies. Like I was mentioning, Teresa, my guess is Teresa's one of the rock star account managers there, or their leader. And, there's answers right there. Or there's something like that survey that can just give you the answers. Like, this is just what I need to do. We have 2 more hands raised. I don't know who raised them, but whoever raised your hand.
So
come up.
Teresa, I think's already raised her hand, but Ed, you've just raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it forward that the comment about people not listening to the customer, like over talking and explaining what their company's all about and what product they have, and never really finding out the core of what the customer needs, is a tough one. And my salespeople, when I'm in meetings with them, especially annual sales meetings, I monitor what they do. And one of the things that I catch them on is just over talking someone else or not grabbing the concept of what somebody else is bringing forward. And I try and coach them not to do that. And it's difficult.
I think part of sales is we want to help people.
Yeah.
I really believe a lot of people go into sales once they get past the idea of making maybe more financially, they actually move into the world of I want to serve people and help them. I find that that's a real, as much as we get stereotyped, there's a real trait there of the thousands of people I've worked with that are there to help other human beings. And we tend to want to overhelp, which is to Ed's point. So let's over-listen. Let's over-listen.
Let's over-listen, yes.
Bring everybody back.
Sales, when done how it's supposed to be, is a truly noble profession. And I believe it's one of the few genuine professions left in business.
Hear, hear, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine, for putting this together, bringing me into your world. We are now connected.
Thank you, Ed. Really appreciate it. You're a total rock star. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.